We tested absolutely everything for 7 long days on this year's entry-level Motorola Razr, and we only counted 4 meaningful changes. And out of those 4, 2 of them are kind of bad news. I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com, and let me show you why you might want to pick this other flip phone instead. This is the Motorola Razr 2026, and this is Samsung's Galaxy Z Flip 7 FE. Both of these look almost identical to their pricier counterparts, which is definitely a good thing. Honestly, the only way you're telling them apart is when you look at the cover displays, but we'll get to those in a second. Motorola went with a more rounded shape, whereas the Galaxy has a more square aesthetic. While both feature aluminium frames, the Galaxy uses Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back, whereas the Razr takes a more unique approach, giving you multiple textures and looks depending on the color you pick. On top of that, it also features a titanium reinforced hinge. But you don't really have to choose when it comes to weight, biometrics, or protection because both weigh the exact same, and both come with an IP48 rating. They also both carry fingerprint scanners in the power buttons. Now it's time to turn on these displays and show you how one of these brands just cheaped out big time. So Motorola gives you more screen real estate on both the foldable and cover displays. The panel tech and refresh rates are identical on these inner displays, but once you close them, it's a different story. The Razr's cover screen supports up to 90 Hz, while the Galaxy is limited to 60 Hz. When we tested typical high brightness, Motorola took a clear advantage over the Galaxy. That lead only grew when looking at peak brightness, where the Razr skyrocketed to more than 2,000 nits. It's a similar story for the cover screens, where Motorola basically leaves the Galaxy in the dark. Go ahead and pause the video right here if you want to look over all the display specs. Look, we get that these are more budget-friendly versions compared to the fully loaded Razr Ultra and the Galaxy Flip 7, but Samsung really cut corners here, whereas Motorola is still delivering great brightness, solid definition, and no weird cutouts. The Razr's outer screen is also hiding another huge advantage over the Galaxy, but we'll get into that just a bit later. In the meantime, you have to see how one of those 4 key changes on the Razr 2026 leaves Samsung far, far behind. So we have 50 megapixel cameras on both of these. On paper, the Galaxy's larger sensor should have the upper hand, but in reality, we get much greater dynamic range on the Razr. But in low light, there's no denying that the Motorola is leagues ahead of the Galaxy. One of the 4 meaningful changes Motorola made on this year's Razr is packing a 50 megapixel sensor onto this entry-level model, whereas the Galaxy sticks with a much smaller 12 megapixel shooter. And as you can see, the difference in definition is very noticeable, but as before, the Moto doesn't come without its quirks, given that blues can look cyan and oranges have some magenta tinting. Although, once again, low-light shots look far better on this one. Unfortunately, neither of these come with a dedicated telephoto lens due to size constraints. If you use digital zoom a lot, the Galaxy is just a bit better at processing those cropped images, whereas the Razr makes surfaces look a little too flat. As for portrait mode, we have to say both are just alright. Once you start pixel peeping and looking closely, you'll see that the edge detection isn't especially great on either phone. But it's on video where things get really interesting. The Razr can only shoot at a maximum of 4K 30 FPS, whereas the Galaxy pushes 4K 60 FPS. That said, as you can see, the Motorola actually looks a bit better if you prefer high contrast and punchy colors. And just so you know, our video samples are always filmed at 4K 30 FPS. One advantage the Galaxy does have over Motorola's phone is the ability to shoot portrait video. It is limited to 1080p 30 FPS resolution, but hey, the option is there. But Motorola was cooking too, because their camcorder mode now comes with dynamic zoom, which works by tilting the phone, and the best part is that your footage remains completely stabilized. But switching over to ultra-wide video, the Razr is once again capped at a maximum of 30 FPS, whereas the Galaxy can do 4K 60 FPS. This time around, we think we prefer Samsung's video, as the footage from the Razr has a weird green tint and the dark areas are completely crushed. But what do you think? And before we pop the hood on these flips, you've got to see the selfie cams. On this side, the Razr comes with a 32 megapixel sensor and the Galaxy Galaxy packs only 10 megapixels. The very first thing we noticed is how the Razr ages you like 10 years. Thankfully, this over-sharpening isn't as aggressive in low light, though the Galaxy looks a bit blurry in turn. As for video, the Razr doesn't have this oversaturation it does with the rear cameras, and we do like that. It is still limited to 4K 30 FPS compared to the 4K 60 FPS on the Galaxy, but we'll let that slide given this is a budget foldable. So now let's test out the audio from both of these devices. We'll start off over here with the Razr. What do you guys think? How do I sound? Moving on to the Galaxy, I'm in a very busy area. How is it handling that? Does it sound better than the Razr? What do you think? Let's talk about it. Now, to be fair, it was super loud out there, but the Motorola canceled almost no background sound, while the Galaxy's volume got super quiet. So, in the end, neither is completely perfect. Overall, we're positively surprised by the results from the Razr, and that improved ultra-wide definitely played a major role here. We would still like to see higher frame rate options for video, but for most people, 4K 30 FPS will be more than enough. But I bet you're curious to see the performance, where Motorola is hiding the upgrade number 2, though we can't really call this one substantial. Yes, we have a new chipset on the Razr, but it's the tiniest of revisions. The Galaxy comes with an in-house chipset and matches the Moto with the exact same amount of RAM. But let us show you why that upgraded silicon on the Motorola isn't the massive leap they want you to believe it is. As always, we did some real-world testing, kicking things off with Grid Autosport, set to graphics mode. Both phones handled the game without any issues, and thermals looked fine on both sides. However, the Galaxy can also run the much more demanding Grid Legends, though to be fair, it does get quite hot and drops down to 19 FPS. Wuthering Waves was definitely a bigger challenge for both devices. Neither phone could hit 60 FPS, but the Razr did not drop its frame rates quite as low as the Galaxy. Samsung's phone stuttered like crazy, and to top it off, it got as hot as a habanero. Once we moved over to productivity tasks like Lightroom, both took around 11 minutes to finish exporting our batch of 99 photos. For context, our 2026 Razr Ultra finished in about half the time. Next up, we rendered a 1-minute 4K 30 FPS video in CapCut. This time around, the Galaxy crossed the finish line first with a 21-second lead. And now, let's take a look at the benchmarks. In Geekbench 6, the Exynos chipset delivered a much better score compared to the MediaTek inside the Razr, taking the lead in both single and multi-core performance. We saw a similar pattern when we ran 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme stress test. The Galaxy peaked with a massive advantage on its best loop, but then throttled right into Razr territory at the lowest loop. Antutu gave us another clear win for the Galaxy, but again, just for reference, our Razr Ultra scored almost 3 million points on this same test. And finally, in the CPDT benchmark, which measured storage speeds, the Galaxy snagged yet another victory, which theoretically translates to snappier day-to-day performance. So as you can see, the benchmarks say that the Galaxy is the superior phone here, but our real-world testing proved that wrong. That said, it's not like the Motorola put up mind-blowing numbers. It was mostly just fine across the board. That'll be more than enough for most casual users, but if you are looking for a serious powerhouse, this new chipset still isn't going to cut it. And speaking of power, the third key upgrade on the Motorola is something you'll definitely notice when it comes to screen on time. Motorola did boost the battery size this year with an extra 300 mAh, but charging speeds remain exactly the same and are still faster than on the Galaxy. That extra capacity on the Razr definitely makes a difference. In fact, the European Energy label rates it at an incredible 59 hours. That's a massive 22 hours more than the Galaxy. Though in our day-to-day use, we did notice aggressive background app killing on the Razr, which explains those crazy numbers. When we tested charging using a 100-watt power brick, the Razr topped up in just 53 minutes, whereas the Galaxy took an extra 24 minutes to cross the finish line. Interestingly enough, both drew almost the exact same peak wattage. But things get weirder when it comes to software, because the Razr is simultaneously the best and the absolute worst. So So both of these come with Android 16 layered under their respective personalization skins. But one area where Motorola is still doing a horrible job is long-term software support. You're only getting a maximum of 4 years, whereas Samsung offers a massive 7 whole years. But despite lacking long-term support, Motorola still does flip phones better than anyone else. Paradoxical, I know. And this isn't even that last fourth change Motorola made to this year's Razr. It's just that Moto flip phones have consistently delivered a better user experience over Samsung's lineup. Out of the box, the Razr's cover screen is just more functional. It lets you run basically any app you can think of, even Wuthering Waves if you want. You can technically force the Galaxy to do the same, but it requires jumping through menus, and honestly, most casual users just won't bother. When it comes to AI, you're getting Circle to Search and Gemini on both sides. Motorola also packs Moto AI, which is based on Perplexity, and the Perplexity app comes pre-installed alongside Gemini for an absolute AI overdose. In terms of the UI itself, Motorola stays closer to stock AOSP, while One UI on the Galaxy has its own colorful aesthetic. Which one is best really comes down to your personal taste, but the Razr takes the crown if you plan on fiddling with that outer screen on a daily basis. Oh, and it can also do this.
Hello, Moto.
And before we reveal that missing fourth upgrade, if you can even call it an upgrade, let's quickly check out the speakers. Personally, we prefer the Motorola's higher volume, though the speaker quality isn't really doing justice to that Dolby Atmos badge. But now it's time to reveal that fourth and final upgrade on this year's Razr, the price. That's clearly an upgrade from Motorola's bank account, but honestly, those minor tweaks don't justify the $100 price hike over last year's model, putting the new 2026 Razr at $799. The Galaxy costs $899, which keeps the Razr as the better value. But since you can still pick up the 2025 Razr model for $599, it's hard to justify upgrading when you're mostly just gaining an improved ultra-wide camera. But things don't get easier for the Razr Ultra either once Samsung pulls out with the Galaxy Z Flip 7. Find out here why. Also, in case you want exclusive access to videos and perks, go press that join button. Here's a special shout out to our latest Ultra members: Zakaria, Robert, Tranger, Thailand, TK, Machi, Johnson, Bagas, Concept Art, Akash, Sifi, Felipe, Burak, Archer, Savdi, and SRV. Oh, and before you go rewatch the Ocarina of Time remake trailer, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and hit subscribe, because we're always testing the latest tech to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care. Bye.